Good morning and welcome to this track. Really unusual track, if I may add, and it's bringing together Finnish people and myself here talking from Iceland, and we're going to be talking about why monopolies should become brands. And that in itself is a strange thing, but even a stranger thing for an event like this one is to have the people on the panel that are present with us. We have Jukka Ruusunen, and he's the CEO of Fingrid, and he is actually, Fingrid has won the Charge Awards one time for being the world's best transmission brand. And they've been nominated more times. So he knows a thing or two about branding, and actually he's a visionary in that space. So, and he's helped us to put together this panel. Then we have Simo Nurmi. He's the head of the Finnish Energy Regulator. And we have Riku Huttunen. He's the Director General of the Ministry of Economic Affairs. And then we have Simon-Erik Ollus, the VP of Trading of Asset Optimization for Fortum. So the reason why we want these people in the room is that they all represent a role when it comes to transmitting energy transmission. So one is from the environment, one is from the regulator, one is from the customer, and one is from the transmission grid. So thanks all for joining, and we really appreciate that, and we look forward to the discussion. I will aim to have this discussion really easygoing. I don't want to go into details too much, because I remember the first time I went into an energy conference, this is 6 years back, after I did my PhD on energy branding. I was invited to be a part of a panel just like this one. People started to talk, and I just didn't understand what they were talking about. I just didn't understand the words, the acronyms, and the way they spoke. So I thought either my PhD is just not worth much at all, or they are making this too complicated. I don't know, I'm not going to judge what is right or wrong here, but I think we are sometimes being overcomplicate issues in the energy space. So I want to start by Jukka, just going around. Why did you consent to be a part of a panel that talks about energy branding? And we'll just go with Simo. If we'll just start, we'll just start with you, and then we go. Then Riku is the next one.
Yes. I think that the reason is that we have been thinking about the perception of Finnish people and our stakeholders in the Finnish society as a whole, because we see that transmission companies that are normally monopolies have a very key role in the society. And then in order for us to work in the society in the best possible way, we have to understand all the stakeholders. That's sort of our perception. But on the other hand, we need the support of the society and from all the stakeholders in order for us to do our job well. So it is. We see that this is a win-win situation for Fingrid and for all our stakeholders. Some of whom are present right now. And it's about branding for us. It's our reputation pretty much. So what these guys say when we are not there, what are they talking about Fingrid? And then it's the image part is what we try to push, that Fingrid is very efficient, customer-oriented, and an innovative company. So on top of that, and from our point of view, we see that you said the branding is too theoretic. For us, it's quite simple. It's the reputation of Fingrid outside, and then the image that we try to sort of push that people, how we are sort of different from many monopolies. Because when people talk about monopolies, many people feel it in a negative sense from the point of view of the brand. So I think even monopolies have to do even more than companies in a competitive situation to push their brand forward and reputation. That's the basis. And then I'm happy that in Finland we have a very good discussion with the stakeholders, and these guys, I mean, took the invitation and came here. That's a positive sign. We haven't failed yet.
No, thanks, Jukka. But Simo, I mean, why did you decide to participate in the track? I'm sure that you had to think about it before. Why in the world you should, be part of this panel?
Okay, yes, thank you. I think that also a regulator should be interested in what is the reputation or the brand of the monopoly companies that they are monitoring. And by this, I mean that of course, in a normal situation, if customers, if they are not satisfied with their service provider, then they can change it. But in a case of monopoly companies, the customers cannot do it. They are dependent on those very one company. So that's why a good reputation and a good brand is essential for monopoly companies.
Okay, good. Thank you. What about you, Riku?
Yes, I must say it's a strange situation thinking about company brands for me being a civil servant. But if Jukka invites, I try to come always. I try to come because I trust the brand of Fingrid actually. And I figured out that the brand of Fingrid, it's not only important for the company itself, but let's think about situation where the image of our TSO is important. For example, investing in new kind of solutions or technologies, or just normal energy or production investments. You have to be sure that your TSO is functioning right, and it's a trustable entity, so to say. So for Finnish audience, for outside investors, and also I would like to add that, of course, Fingrid has companies as customers, but maybe the most important customer is the Finnish taxpayer, which the state is, of course, representing. So you are doing work for Finnish citizens and Finnish people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good. Simon, what about you? What would your reason be for being there? Besides just doing what Jukka tells you to do or asks you to do.
I actually think this is a very good debate, and I was happy to come to this because this really goes to the core what actually a TSO should be doing. I mean, Fortum is the largest utility in the like in Finland, and we are one very big actually in Northern Europe. We are operating in 8 countries, production and consumption portfolios. And I'm actually taking care of relationship building and stakeholder management with 8 TSOs. And when I put things into perspective, yes, there are things that me and Jukka disagrees on, and there are things when Jukka comes with requirements on our power plants that I'm totally against. But I think the attitude how a TSO is actually operating, here actually Fingrid is an outlier. Fingrid is much more, let's say, customer open. It wants to have an open dialogue with its like customers. It's actually define customers. It listens to actually what the sector wants to happen. And why is it actually important? Because a TSO is actually responsible of the power system, and it can also be gas TSOs who are responsible for the gas system of a full infrastructure. And we're actually having a challenge which is called like climate change and energy transition. So actually the TSO is not only responsible of the system stability here today, it's actually also is responsible of facilitating the energy transition, building an infrastructure which is credible that companies like Fortum can then be actually investing in right kind of assets that we're actually enabling the energy transition. If you are just a monopoly who is like very stubborn and feels that I know everything and I don't really have an engagement with the customers who actually should be investing in new kind of assets and new kind of needs for the society, you will never get the soft signals how technology and demand, etc. is going. So actually to be successful as the transmission system operator on a strategic role, you can only do that if you really have like a strong customer engagement and you actually listen to what the customers are coming with ideas. You might not always agree with what the customer wants, but you actually understand what the industry and the customers around is actually wanting to do in the next period. So actually be open-minded and actually branding and actually listen to customers is quite different, and that's actually needed to be successful in actually energy transition, I believe.
No, really interesting. Thank you. I want to pick up on this because the main thing that you've said was just listening and understanding your client, but embedded in branding is the philosophy of trying to understand and think about things from a customer perspective. So that, to me, that's what branding is. And I think that you reflected that discussion really well. And also, Riku, you talked about trust. And trust, obviously, is the foundation of which we will build on. And we will talk about a model that Fingrid uses in a while, which uses reputation and the trust together. But I also, so Jukka, when we were preparing for this, you said something really interesting, because a part of becoming an open and transparent company, which Fingrid is, and now we just heard from Simon that he perceives you differently from the rest, which I think is part of the way the way Fingrid behaves. You said it hurts to open yourself. So it might be just easier just to close your doors and not listen too much to clients and do what you're supposed to do from the regulator side and from the ministry side. Can you elaborate a little bit on this, why it hurts to open yourself?
Yes, actually, you have, like as a human being, you have to be quite bold when you start to open yourself, because it's a risky area, and if you think about the culture that is built into the transmission companies, it's based on engineers who know technical details very, very well, but they are not too good with people normally. And then when you start the discussion, you jump into an uncertain area. Somebody might disagree, even Simon-Erik might come to you and tell something about something of our sort of core business areas, not only about these energy market issues where they are experts, but they come to us and tell. So then it means that the experts have to jump into a dialogue, not one-way communication, not sending emails, not sending letters, and take all the critique and tolerate that. So you have to know, even if you have to develop your people to sort of to take that hurt. That's why I said it hurts. In the beginning, it hurts. All the critique. I mean, be it a company, be it a human being. And anyway, I think that we should understand that anyway, this is a people-to-people business, not business to customer, business to business, but person to person, human being to human being. And then when you go into that discussion openly in a humble way, you have to tolerate a lot of critique, and then you have to sort of be constructive in that critique. I said you don't have to take everything on board, but you have to be able to listen and listen in a very constructive way, not just take letters in and then ignore, but be involved in and jump into the discussion, and I think that's not built into the culture of transmission companies, or I could say in any sort of normal monopoly business. Monopolies tend to be sort of looking things from in to out, not the other way around.
No, I agree, and I thank you for pointing this out. It's not just about transmission companies, because monopoles we can find all over basically, and in the Nordics, because we have a lot of international audiences, so the government controls the way we purchase alcohol, so we have to go to a special store in Finland and Sweden and in Iceland, and so we find this in a lot of places. So thank you for that. And also I think it's just simply, it's good to have competition. There's a saying that the best thing that happens to Coca-Cola was Pepsi, because they pushed them, they helped them to do better. But let's talk a little bit about reputation. And I want to go into the model that Fingrid uses, and we will put that up on the screen. So if we'll start with you, Simo, again. So if you look at the model, and I see that you're looking at it on your piece of paper, do you understand all these words there? There are governance, financial performance, leadership, innovation, dialogue, product and services, workplace responsibility. What do those words mean to you? I know this is a difficult question for you. So, but if you'll just dig into it, because I mean, it's pointless to measure if you don't understand what we are measuring. So, can you just elaborate on what you're seeing?
Of course, thank you. I think they are the three key principal things what make the reputation and the brand of the company for the people who are working in the company, and also for the customers who are customers of that company. They are the key principal issues.
Okay. Thank you. And what about Riku? I mean, maybe if you can you look at it and browse through it and tell me what you can see?
I was really afraid I would have this question also. But of course, it's a way to figure out what kind of dimensions this issue has. I'm not going to analyze it in detail, be sure about that, but for me, quite simply, it's a question to build a basis for how the company works and how it looks like. So it's the behavioral side which counts, to me at least. Maybe it's like engineer thinking or something like that, but I really agree that what shows is what you are. And I can quite frankly say that it's always been easy to discuss with Fingrid, for example, and have an open discussion. We don't agree always. We don't always agree, but sometimes we do. And if we don't, we find a solution. And it helps enormously, for example, in the preparation of legislation, because we could do it that way, that we write the law and put it to the parliament and get it back. And Fingrid doesn't understand a line there, but it's better to discuss it together and get a good result by that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And of course, I'm sneaky to be asking you to read into those words in the model, but I do want to talk about a word. I want to talk about the word trust. See, because that's what you said yourself, Riku, trust. So when you're building a brand, you're building a trust. And trust is related to a lot of key indicator performance indexes. And it's not just a word, it's a word that means that if you successful in gaining trust, you'll run your company better. Your employees will be happier. It's easier to get people to work for you, and on and on and on and on we go. That's why we're doing this. We are not doing this to look good or be fancy. We are doing this because of performance issues. But I want to go and take the same question to you, Simon. If you'll just read into the model also, and we can see, it's about perception and behavior. There are some perceptions there that change behavior and affect behavior. Do you want to elaborate on what you're looking at, Simon?
I mean, for me, it's actually showing that building a brand like Fingrid has built take a lot of time. It's not something that Jukka decides it today and tomorrow he has the perfect brand. It takes several years or even decades to actually build in the company that is actually performing, because it has to go through everything. It has to be the full workforce in the company has to adopt the same principles, and you actually have to get them live. You actually need to live up to what you are saying. And that's also what I actually like in Fingrid, that today I feel that this kind of, let's say, customer attitude or customer friendliness and eagerness to actually listen to what the customers want, that's in all the loads. I mean, it's not only the top management of the company, but it's also the guys in the field when we discuss practical issues. It's really like a different kind of DNA in the company. And that to build that, you need a framework like this. You need to execute it for quite a long time, really, to get it up and living. And it takes time. It's a huge change journey, actually. And I think this is actually the concept to build that. And then in the end of the day, it will come up with a good score and a trust towards the company. And there I think Fingrid is doing quite well, or is quite successful.
No, Simon, you said the golden sentence there. Basically, it's about time. You build trust through time, just like we do like individuals, but it can take a night to lose it if you behave incorrectly. So it's a long-term issue. But Jukka, I'm just going to conclude with a model. Can you explain to me, because I mean, there's a lot of words there. There's a lot of different words, and there's different perception that translate into behavior. I mean, how can you keep a tab on everything that's going on there? How can you understand all this issue? And do you work with them all at the same time, or do you emphasize one over the other? And how do you, if so, why? How do you do that?
As Simon-Erik said, it takes a lot of time, and there are sort of two issues, that this has to be built into Fingrid structures, and then it has to be built into the Fingrid culture. So what's happen in people's minds. But actually, this is not an invention from from Fingrid. I think Fortum is using a similar model. Even some ministries in Finland are using this. So there is a sort of even we could call a scientific basic that these are the key issues. But actually, if I look Fingrid strategy, these are the issues that we are managing all the time, but this brings another dimension. If we talk about leadership, for example, we can sort of manage our people internally, but this leadership also means that how do our people see their customers and stakeholders, so that we don't just build it internally. So this is sort of the external push to Fingrid. Actually, our leadership model or strategy is based on the strategy model of Kaplan and Norton. And there is this customer perspective, which is quite similar, that you have to bring in customers everywhere in the company. And this is what we try to do. So if your strategy is not, and what you do every day, your structures are not aligned, you don't just build sort of a separate thing for reputation. It's like for responsibility. People talk about company responsibility. And if there is a separate group of people talking about responsibility, and then the management is doing what they are doing, it doesn't work. This has to be in the DNA of the company. And I think these are very good points. And for me, this was when I saw this first time, I think this is very logical. And then there is sort of a scientific proof how these perceptions and reputations goes together with the behavior, and the correlation coefficient is very high. And this is how this company is benchmarking very different kinds of companies in Finland, so that we can enter into that benchmarking. It's not only for us, but how the other companies are doing, whether monopolies or not. And this is how we want to learn, because unfortunately, monopolies are not the best teachers for us at the moment. It's the other way around. That there's a lot for us to learn from companies that work under competition, and we can learn from them. That's why we wanted to take this model. But it seems complicated, but actually the beef is extremely simple.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm a firm believer in using models, obviously. And we have our own model which measures the strength. It's an index, Energy Branding Benchmarking Index, and it actually measures the strength of positioning of brands. And then you can understand what you need to fix. But now I said a new word. I said positioning. Positioning is a value-loaded word. Brand is a value-loaded word. And I know from discussion with various stakeholders within the industry that particularly in the TSO side, people don't like to use the word brand because they like to say repetition instead. Repetition instead, yes. I just want to, Jukka, you and I have had discussion on this, but in that word brand or branding, it's very often related to some kind of marketing or the logo or some things that are on top of a pyramid, but it doesn't, to many, it doesn't reflect everything that's behind it and how the organization behaves. I just want to ask you, I know you're receptive to the idea, and that's why you're on this panel, but just if you think about brands in general, the Coca-Colas of the world and the Carlsberg of the world, and the Legos, those big, huge IKEA, those big brands, do you see any trouble with a monopoly becoming a brand like these brands? Just if you'll just have a talk about this, Simon-Erik, maybe if you'll start, I know this is a different way of asking what I've already asked, but I want to understand the word brand and why people are reluctant to use it in the energy space sometimes.
Now, I'm coming from an energy company that also works a lot with brands, so we like branding. So for us, I mean, I actually like the idea that the TSO try to become a brand, and the TSO, as Fingrid has, it's a trustable brand. And I actually think, as I said earlier, I mean, we have huge challenges ahead. We are actually going to decarbonize our societies, and actually the TSO should be on the driving seat of it, not be somebody coming after, but should actually create a brand that, yes, we can do it, and we are building the grid, which is then facilitating that we get the investments. Is it then in the industry, or is it then like from the production side that we actually get there? So actually creating this kind of brand, I think, is even an enabler to come to the climate targets that our society sets. And it's actually even dangerous as a TSO if you are really just like trying to be where you are today and you're not jumping into this race, then we are going to fade in those countries with the climate targets definitely. So I actually believe brand is actually damn important in this business.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Very good. Thank you. What about you two guys, Simo and Riku? I know I'm asking you challenging questions and I'm putting you on the spot, but, can you just Riku, if you'll start, I mean, when you first heard about, if you equate Fingrid to the Coca-Colas of the world, what comes to your mind? Do you reflect on it? It's not really a concrete question, just your reflection on it.
Okay, of course I'm a cynical civil servant and I try to find the core of everything, but well, let's take an example. We have this alcohol monopoly, as you just mentioned, in Nordic countries, and in Finland it's called Alko. Some people like it, some people don't, but the fact is that in a way the brand is very good, because when you go to Alko, you have a very good service, and many brands, and you really get what you want, and you even get what you don't thought you wanted. So it's a very good monopoly, and I think the brand is very good. I'm not telling that Fingrid brand should be like Alko, but you understand what I'm meaning, and also the brand of Fingrid or our TSO, it's part of the brand of Finland. We are Team Finland, and we should have investments here. We should make the decarbonization happen, whatever you think in this field. So it's very important that all our key actors have a good brand, if you like, a good image, a good reputation, whatever word.
Yeah. So it's not just about the Finnish people, it's also about the foreign investment. So
Foreign and national.
Good. Yeah. Good point. What about you, Simo? If I may, inquire, what do you think about it?
Well, I think that I'm actually quite happy that we can use words like Fingrid and brand at the same sentences, because it's not so far away. Years ago, when also Fingrid and also other network operators in Finland, they thought that they don't have customers. They thought that they have got a different kind of electrical load in their network. So it has been a long way that the companies, Fingrid, for example, has understood that they have got customers. And when they understand that they have got customers, then they understand that the customers have got needs. And when they understand that the customers have got needs, they will do everything to meet those customer needs. And when they do so, then also their brand will be good.
Mm-hmm. Good. No, really, really good. But Jukka, maybe if you'll we're soon out of time, so I'll be wrapping up quite soon. But Jukka, I've heard this from you that you have trouble with using the word brand, but you are definitely not the only one. So when I approach people because I want to help them to become what they are talking about here, they're reluctant because they don't need to become brands. So explain why is this? Why is that not a good word for many?
I think it's the perception of the word brand is such that it's related to these Coca-Colas and so forth, and a lot of advertisement. For example, where we put the line, we don't go into the Finnish television and put a lot of advertisement and spend our sort of customers' money for that. So that's the line from our point of view, because we don't have direct customers, the end customers. So we try to develop the brand so that our reputation is going forward without the television ads. And as Riku said, anyway, we have to serve the Finnish society. So it's a little bit paradoxical, but this is how we work. And I think I believe that Simon-Erik has no problem of talking about Fortum's brand. But then when you go to a monopoly, it's a little bit strange word, and it is reserved for something which is not so clear for an engineering, the transmission company. And you said first that you entered into a brand discussion first, that it was so theoretical. I don't care about words, but the content. And the content of the brand is extremely important, whatever word you use. And in Fingrid, people like the word reputation. They like that we have a good image. So who cares that then we don't use the word brand as such? But you understand it and then you can use it.
Good point. Okay, so my last line of questioning, and you touched upon this briefly, and Simon-Erik brought it up that you have to live it also. It has to be a part of reputation. It has to align with what people in your organization think. In my line of work, I use the word identity and image. Image is what others think of you, and that's what we measure with our benchmarking tool. It consists of 30 questions, and then when we answer these questions, we understand if your brand is healthy, basically. That's what the EBI does, Energy Branding Benchmarking Index. So you do that, but we also have to measure internally. But the greatest obstacle that we find, or I find most of the time, is when I talk about brand audits or becoming a brand, that it doesn't resonate in the same way internally. So what others think is not the same as what we think. So, but you've explained to me now that this is not the case for Fingrid. So, but maybe Simon-Erik, because you already had, how many TSOs are you doing business with? Did you say 5 or 8? 8. And can you just maybe reflect on this identity versus image when you deal with them? So do you feel like they portray a very different image from how they actually behave or not?
I mean, that is making this discussion so difficult that, of course, as a big utility in Finland, I would want to be critical towards Fingrid. I would want to complain that you are raising our grid fees, so you are forcing us to make investments on transformers at our power plants, etc. That happens every now and then, and we are not always happy. But I think even when that happens, we have a good dialogue, and we actually are able to agree and understand each other, and then we go further. And I don't want to dash any other TSO, but I have to say that most of the other TSOs are quite far from this kind of this kind of attitude. It's more they come by orders, this is how it has to do, and then you just have to comply with it. It's much more difficult to have a dialogue, ask questions, take contact when you have concerns, and then especially on the strategic horizon. I think a TSO can not only be stuck in today keeping up the power system, that's one important element, but it's actually one of the most important enablers for the energy transition, how to build a future power system. And I think here also, Fingrid is working quite a lot with strategy, with stakeholders, doing long-term planning, scenarios, thinking how the future power system should look like. And that is then enabling investments, because then actually stakeholders, we as a company or other companies actually believe that they dare to invest in this country because it actually has a good power system. And I think that we have a strong power system in Finland is already a proof that something has been done quite well so far. So it's really start from the attitude and the mentality. Are you a monopoly and are you stuck on that, or are you seeing yourself as something else? And even if I would want to be very critical towards Fingrid, when I'm putting things into perspective, I'm actually saying that Fingrid is doing quite a good job.
Thank you. No, it's interesting. So not to put words in your mouth, but in your view, I can hear that you're saying that it's important for transmission companies around Europe to become brands in somewhat similar manner as Fingrid. So that's what I heard you say. And I also heard you talk about the energy transition. And Riku, you already talked about the energy transition. So why are we talking about energy transition in the same manner as we're talking about brands and reputation? So can you explain a little bit more, Riku?
Yeah, sure. Whatever business we are talking about, it's about people talking to each other and trying to find a way to trust each other and make formal agreements after that. But it's a very good starting point if you are considered as an open and frank and trustable entity and organization, and when it's easy to start discussing issues. Let's take an example. If somebody might be planning, for example, an offshore wind power park to our sea areas, what's the willingness to start discussions with, for example, TSOs or authorities or whatsoever? If you are open and frank and you are trusted, it's much easier to start, and it's a very good start for a good business also in the future. So that's the reason I find this very important.
Thank you. Simo, maybe this is my last question to you guys. Simo, and my last question to you. Do you have anything to add to what Riku said about the energy transition and the communication part? You know, how does those things relate in your mind?
Well, I think of course everybody knows that also the energy system it must be carbon neutral in a few decades, and in Finland, Fingrid is one of the key players that ensures that it will be possible. And of course, if Fingrid does that job also well, then the customers are satisfied and their brand is good. And when Fingrid's customers, when they are satisfied, when they are satisfied with Fingrid, then also I can be satisfied as a regulator, because it makes my job easier, because the final customers, if they are satisfied with the transmission system operator, then they are also satisfied how the regulation works.
Would you say, Simo, that you represent the general view of other regulators around Europe and around the world? Are you like-minded?
Well, there's only 5 of us here, so I can say probably not.
No, I agree, probably not. So, and this is actually, Jukka, you are our host today. I just wanted to, before I say goodbye to you and I close this formally, if there's something that you want to add to the discussion that we may have not discussed, which is important.
I think we have gone through most of the issues and the beef, but as I said, that for Fingrid it's pretty much this stakeholder support, and when we talk about this changing energy system, from Fingrid's point of view, when we have the trust, we can do the innovation in a better way. That we don't, the regulator doesn't order us to go to a box immediately, but they trust that we are doing something that is good for the society. We are not cheating. We are not cheating. We are working for Finland, and we have a big space to work on, and then do the innovations. And then when we get to the final solutions, then we discuss with the ministry and the regulator. But they don't have to sort of watch us every day. They know that these guys are good. They are working for the good of Finland, and that's it. And that's also helping. You talked about this internally, that this is what Fingrid people appreciate a lot. The freedom to innovate, operate and invent new solutions for the Finnish electricity system. And they know that the regulator is not watching every day what we are doing. When we do something good, the regulator has the trust, and they show the trust, as Simo said.
Thank you. So this has been really interesting for me. And our discussion has led us to areas I didn't really anticipate. It's being to the energy transition, to climate change, to a TSO representing the country, investments, etc., etc. So I find it really interesting. But I want to compliment you again, gentlemen, because I think that Fingrid is exemplary in this issue, and that's why we have this panel. And I just simply hope that this panel, because this broadcast is all over the world, that it will be encouragement for others in your position to think about these issues. Gentlemen, thank you a lot.